Good morning. We have general questions. Question number 1, Jenny Marra.
To ask the Scottish Government what its financial commitment is to the Regional Performance Centre in Dundee and when it will open.
For sporting infrastructure is routed through Sport Scotland, our national agency for sport. Sport Scotland and Dundee City Council have begun discussions on the new plans for the Regional Performance Centre in Dundee. These plans will determine the budget required for the project. It's expected that the Regional Performance Centre will be completed by 2016.
Jenny Marra.
I thank the Minister for her response. Ken Guild, leader of Dundee City Council, said earlier this week, we have to know exactly how much we will get from Sport Scotland. Can the Minister tell him this?
Minister.
Well, of course, the discussions about the budget will follow the new plans. You can't set a budget without knowing what the new plans look like and what they will cost. What I can tell the member is that the new steering group, which has involvement from the city's 2 football clubs, both universities, Dundee and Angus College, NHS Tayside and of course Dundee City Council, had a meeting on the 17th of September. Discussions have now begun with Sport Scotland to amend the plans that they had for the National Performance Centre into a regional performance centre model. Once all that is done, we will know what the budget required will be, and that will be taken forward through Sport Scotland and Dundee City Council.
Christian Allard.
Can the Minister tell us how will the Regional Performance Centre help ensure we get more children and young people in Dundee involved in sport, building on the work of the community sports hubs?
Minister.
Well as supporting elite athletes in the Tayside area, I would expect the facilities in the new Regional Performance Centre to be very much community focused for many people of all ages, but particularly young people, to be able to come along and enjoy sport both within the inside facilities but the outside facilities as well. And I think it will undoubtedly help young people in the area to be more active and deliver a strong legacy from the Commonwealth Games, on top of course of some of the other fantastic facilities that Dundee have been taken forward in recent times.
Question number 2, Liz Smith.
To ask the Scottish Government how preparations for the 2014 Commonwealth Games are progressing.
Minister Sean Robson.
Good progress continues to be made towards the successful delivery of the Glasgow 2014 Commonwealth Games. With less than a year to go, the Games remain on track to be delivered on time and on budget. All permanent sports venues have been completed and are already available for use by the public. Interest in ticket sales has been tremendous, with over 2.3 million requests for around 1 million tickets, and at least 70% of the tickets for every session available to the public. And of course, the Queen's Baton Relay will begin its journey around the Commonwealth early next month.
Liz Smith.
I thank the Minister. It is exceptionally good news about the level of demand for the tickets. During the London Olympics and Paralympics, 125,000 tickets were made available for young people to take advantage of the event. Will the same be true for the Commonwealth Games?
Minister.
What I can tell the member is that plans and discussions are ongoing around a sort of gift of the Games initiative between the partners involved in the Games, and there will be news on that quite soon.
Patrick Harvie, then I'm going to call Dennis Robertson.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The Minister will be aware of the interests and concerns of the LGBT community in Glasgow, both in organising positive initiatives such as Pride House, which I gather the Government has given some support to, but also the need to raise, in as constructive a spirit as possible, concerns about the record of Commonwealth countries in criminalising their LGBT communities. Would the Minister be willing to have a meeting with me to discuss how these interests and concerns can be given the most constructive possible expression during the Games?
Minister.
I'm certainly happy to meet the member to discuss these matters. I think there is an opportunity to promote a positive message about the journey that Scotland has been on, the progress that we've made, although acknowledging there's still progress yet to be made. And if that can be an inspiration to others, then that would be a very positive way of sharing our experience with others who are perhaps at different stages in their journey along on these matters.
Dennis Robertson.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Is the Minister content that all venues and transport links will be fully accessible for people with disabilities?
Minister.
I think certainly the Scottish Government fully recognises the importance of accessibility for people with disabilities. We are working with the organising committee and public transport operators to ensure that the Games are fully inclusive and accessible. To that end, Glasgow 2014 are currently finalising an accessible transport strategy, which will be published in November, and details and the key principles for delivering accessible transport across the Games network will be within that document.
Question 3, Kevin Stewart.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what support it provides to universities to attract students from overseas.
Cabinet Secretary Michael Russell.
Presiding Officer, in Scotland, we welcome international students and researchers to our world-class institutions. We value the significant cultural, economic and intellectual contribution they make. In addition to the dedicated staff universities provide to attract international students, we provide funding through the SFC for an international officer based at University of Scotland who has responsibility for promoting Scottish higher education globally. We also provide support through the Saltire Scholarships programme, the primary aim of which is to raise the profile of Scotland as a place to live, work and study in key overseas markets. The scholarships are designed to support the promotion of Scotland as a learning nation and a science nation. In the research field, scholarships for excellence provide funds to top researchers to come to Scottish universities to undertake their PhDs.
Kevin Stewart, before the Minister answers, it would be appreciated if you could put your microphone up a bit. Kevin Stewart.
Thank you, Presiding Officer, and I thank the Cabinet Secretary for his answer. In a letter I received from the Principal of Aberdeen University earlier on this year, I was told that since the removal of the post-study work scheme, the university has seen a drop of entrants from India of some 60% and from Nigeria of 22%. What can be done to counter the damage that UK immigration policies and the UK BA are having on attracting overseas students to our universities?
Cabinet Secretary.
I'm happy to provide a one-word answer to that, Presiding Officer. Independence is what can be done, because the reality is that the actions of the UK BA and now the Home Office are give deep problems for all universities. Sir Ian Diamond, Principal of Aberdeen, has been in the forefront of taking forward these issues. But members from other sides shout that there is some other way. There is no other way. I heard Liam MacArthur debating this in Dundee last week, and he could not provide any other way. The only way to do this is to have control of immigration in this Parliament, and then we will show our merit. And our merit is to welcome students, not to be suspicious of them.
Question number 4, Mike McKenzie.
The Scottish Government what its position is on the Department for Energy and Climate Change's consultation on providing additional support for renewables on Scotland's islands.
Minister Fergus Ewing.
The Scottish Government welcomes this important consultation. The intergovernmental group that I called for last year has helped establish a clear evidence base for additional support for island renewables. We must now deliver a solution that delivers for Orkney, Shetland and the Western Isles. So I was pleased that the Secretary of State, Ed Davey, committed to this at his party conference in Glasgow earlier this month. We are now working closely with the UK Government, with our island partners and others towards an outcome that enables all the islands to harness their huge renewable energy potential.
Mike McKenzie.
I thank the Minister for that answer. I'm concerned that the proposals announced in the consultation may not go all the way to overcoming the range and extent of barriers that renewable energy developers on islands face. What assurances can the Minister give to this sector that this aspect will be considered during the consultation?
Minister.
Well, I do share the members' concerns about this, particularly because DEC proposed a single CFD uplift for island onshore wind at £115 per megawatt, whereas the Baringa Islands Renewable Report recognised that each of the 3 island groups had different needs and circumstances. So I'm keen to continue to work with DEC in this matter, but we are also to continue to press Ofgem on its review of transmission charging, Project Transmit, for outcomes that work for Scotland's islands, including looking again at the costs of converter stations costs. In addition, I am writing to Ofgem to invite GEMA, that's the Gas and Electricity Markets Authority Board, to visit the Western Isles, to meet with local stakeholders and hear what they have to say there. So I want to work with everybody across all parties to deliver the result for all 3 islands. And, Presiding Officer, this is a top priority for myself and the Scottish Government.
Liam MacArthur.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. Can I welcome the Minister's very constructive response there and also acknowledge the work that the Islands Working Group has done in progressing this issue. Would he agree with me that establishing the principle of a separate strike price for the islands is a significant move forward and I think allows encouragement not just for developments in my own constituency in Orkney, but in the other island groups as well?
Minister.
Well, with both Mr MacArthur and myself, the glass is always half full. So, in that spirit, yes, I do. I do welcome the fact that the principle has been accepted. Had the principle not accepted, then where would we be? But I do think that there is more work to be done with respect to Mr Davey. I do think that since the evidence report, which Mr Davey and myself called for, produced a conclusion that the three islands, not surprisingly, had different needs and required different levels of support, then I think the rational evidence-based case has already been established to some extent, but more work is needing to be done, and I welcome the cooperation of Ed Davey and his colleagues thus far in reaching the establishment and acceptance of the principle. Without that principle, Presiding Officer, let's be clear, the islands would be cut off from benefiting from their renewables potential, despite the fact that they are the best place in the world to develop our renewable energy potential. So this matter could not be more serious, and I'm delighted to carry on the work in the way that we've been doing with Mr MacArthur and his colleagues and across all other parties.
Question 5, Paul Martin.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what steps it is taking to improve child protection services.
Minister Aileen Campbell.
The Scottish Government is committed to ensuring that fast and effective protection is in place for children at risk of abuse and neglect. To that end, we have introduced new and strengthened guidance to help ensure all practitioners working with children are equipped to protect children at risk. We've also twice overseen the inspection of child protection services in every part of Scotland. The second round showed significant improvements overall, with 94% receiving a positive report. Also, on the 17th of April last year, we introduced the Children and Young People Bill to Parliament. This is central to our aim of making Scotland the best place in the world to grow up.
Paul Martin.
Presiding Officer, this is a copy of the serious case review in respect of Daniel Pelka. I wonder if the Minister has the chance to read this report and can she confirm what action the Government is taking to ensure that we put in place every possible safeguard to ensure that here in Scotland we minimise the risk of the possibility of another case similar to that of Daniel Pelka?
Minister.
I respect the way in which Paul Martin has raised this, and of course the death of Daniel was an absolute tragedy. There has been a significant amount of work done over the last couple of years on this, and particularly in the last 7 or 8 months. On November last year, we published the National Risk Framework for Assessment of Children and Young People. 28th November last year, we published the National Framework for Child Protection, Learning and Development. We've refreshed and revised the Pink Book for health professionals. We've republished our Getting Our Priorities Right in April this year for professionals specifically working with children and families where substance misuse is a factor. As I said, we've also published the Children and Young People Bill, which will strengthen the support for vulnerable families. But also I think it's worth reminding ourselves that, and in the words of Tam Bailey, the Children's Commissioner, that no place in the world can give a 100% guarantee on the safety of all its children. But this government is very much committed to making sure that every child should be protected and safe from harm. And of course, we'll never be complacent and learn the lessons from what's happened in England in relation to the case that the member outlines.
Question number 6, James Dornan.
To ask the Scottish Government what recent discussions ministers have had with local authorities regarding the community benefits that arise from environmental projects.
Minister Fergus Ewing.
Our aim is to maximise the opportunities for community benefits from renewable energy developments and recognise that national guidance on good practice would be welcome. Guidance is currently being developed under our Community and Renewables Energy Scheme, CARES, in consultation with stakeholders. The aim is to publish in the autumn.
James Dornan.
I thank the Minister for that answer. Does he agree with me that it's imperative that local authorities consider that any community benefits from these projects support the local community first and foremost, unlike in the case of Castlemilk and Kilmarnock in my constituency, who have now been informed that most of the profit from the local wind park, originally to be used for local community benefit, will now be part of central funding by Glasgow City Council?
Minister.
Well, we seek to work with all local authorities in these matters. I haven't had specific discussions with Glasgow City Council on these matters, and therefore I think it probably wouldn't be correct for me to make any substantive comment thereon. But generally speaking, we seek to ensure, working with local authorities, that communities can benefit from renewable energy developments in their own part of Scotland.
Question 7, David Stewart.
To ask the Scottish Government what analysis is made of the issues faced by people under 65 with dementia.
Cabinet Secretary Alex Neil.
Presiding Officer, we know that of the 86,000 people currently living with dementia in Scotland, around 3,000 are under 65. Next month, Health Scotland publishes Younger People with Dementia, Living Well with Your Diagnosis. Developed in partnership with Alzheimer's Scotland, it provides a range of insights and information from younger people with dementia and their family carers in their own words about what helps to live well with the diagnosis. There are specific challenges for this group. Rarer forms of dementia are more common in under 65s and can be more difficult to diagnose. Under 65s have different post-diagnostic support needs in areas such as maintaining their community connections and accessing peer support. Our national post-diagnostic target, underpinned by a commitment that everyone diagnosed from the 1st of April this year will receive a minimum of a year's worth of dedicated support, coordinated by a trained link worker and regardless of age, is based on Alzheimer's Scotland's 5-pillar person-centred support model and will help meet those needs.
David Stewart.
Presiding Officer, the Cabinet Secretary rightly identifies the 3,200 people in Scotland who have dementia who are under 65, many of which require help with personal care, such as continence management, food and diet, but have to pay for this as they are under 65. Will the Cabinet Secretary agree to review this policy and provide free personal care for dementia sufferers under 65 years old?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, there are a range of additional support services available to people with dementia under 65 years of age, including in some cases continuing health care. We keep these issues under constant review because we want to ensure that the best health service support is available, as well as the best social care support to people with dementia of all ages.
Question number 8, Graham Pearson.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what financial support it will provide to East Ayrshire Council to assist in the restoration of open cast mines.
Minister Fergus Ewing.
Presiding Officer, there is not now, nor has there ever been, any specific budgetary provision for restoration of open cast coal sites.
Graham Pearson.
I'm obliged for that reply from the Minister. He will be aware of the report that was received by East Ayrshire Council this month in relation to additional costs that they may face restoring land previously used for open cast facilities, a finance that they are incapable of facing in the medium term. Is he able to give us some indication that he will take steps to try and alleviate that problem?
Minister.
Well, as Mr Pearson, I think members across the parties know that I've been working very closely, chairing a task force with Professor Russell Griggs, and in which all parties representing coaling areas are represented. We work very closely with all the local authorities. We've had productive relations. There are a number of steps we're doing, not least the establishment of the independent Scottish Mines Restoration Trust under Russell Griggs' chairmanship, and also exploring, in a letter I wrote to Mr Michael Fallon recently, the possibility of restoration to Scotland of some of the millions of pounds which have been paid from the levy of 17p per tonne per coal mined in Scotland, to use that money towards restoration of the coal mines which are left in our country.
Very briefly, Adam Ingram.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Could I ask what response the Minister has had from the UK Energy Minister to his request that the Coal Authority levy of 17 pence per tonne of coal mine should be applied for restoration purposes? Unlike the Scottish Government, the UK Treasury has benefited from a significant income stream from open cast mining and should surely assume more financial responsibility for its clear-up.
Minister, briefly.
Well, I wrote to Michael Fallon only on the 17th September, so I think it's probably to say it's unreasonable to expect that we would have received a detailed reply at this stage. And I should make it clear that the total aggregate monies involved would not be sufficient to solve the total problem by any means. But nonetheless, I think that it was recognised in the task force that this is a reasonable thing for us to ask. The money was paid from the coal mined in Scottish communities. Surely there is a very strong case, given this money went straight in, or most of it went straight into the Consolidated Fund, that it now be used to tackle the task that we all have to restore the open cast mines that are coaled out in Scotland.
We now move